Hello, and welcome to another Lombardi Live. This is a real fun one for me. You're going to be finding out what's happening in the music world today, and I mean today, right now. We're going to be talking with someone who members of Drum Channel should definitely know. He's been a part of our DC team for over 5 years. He's a great drummer, and he's learned how to play in a band, which has taken off like no other in recent years. Not only because they have an amazingly talented lead singer, but because they really sound like a band. And we're going to talk about that and challenges that face young drummers today. The band is King Princess. In a short period of time, they went from playing clubs to Saturday Night Live to Jimmy Fallon, and recently they just opened for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. How did that happen? Antoine Fadavi, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Don. Well, first of all, I want to say it's an honor for me to be here. I've been loving this series and everything you've been doing with Drum Channel for a while.
Now I've got to jump in. He's been producing this series for how many shows have we done? 50, I think.
Yeah, just over 50.
So this is a unique position for you to be in. You're usually behind the camera, and you've often heard me say Antoine or Elias behind the scenes. This is the Antoine I've been talking about, whose life as a young professional drummer in town has just skyrocketed. And that's the question: how did this all happen? You started in playing clubs?
Well, so I was born and raised in Paris, France, and lived there for 18 years. I started playing drums when I was about 10 years old, and just learned self-taught from YouTube and online. And yeah, I started to go to jazz clubs around town to play with other people, and did a lot of that and just some small shows in Paris. And yeah, and then around the same time when I was maybe 12, 13, I started posting videos of myself on YouTube playing like drum covers. And I got in touch with some people in the US, and then I was able to travel to go to the NAMM show to do some showcases and meet some people. And by the time I was 18, I knew enough people to make the move. And so I moved to LA and started kind of working and taking any little gigs I could get. And that's also when I started working with you with Drum Channel. And then yeah, I started playing with King Princess about a year after I moved here.
I know how talented you are. How did they know how talented you were when you went into audition? How did that work?
Really, I was auditioning with 2 other drummers, and actually the thing that got me the gig is that I knew enough about technology to run the backing tracks for the band. And yeah, I showed up prepared, and I knew the songs, and I was professional.
There's another reason why you got that gig. You might not even know yourself, and I'm going to tell you what that is in a few minutes. But
okay.
I'll leave that as a little surprise for you.
Cool.
But let's go to the evolution of, like, a lot of young drummers are out there with a lot of great new bands. How did you get on Saturday Night Live? How did it start to become more of a popular band and grow?
That's a good question. I know that the rise of the band was due to one of the songs that was published called 1950 by King Princess. I think that's actually her first single that she released in 2018. And it was shared on Twitter by Harry Styles, which has a huge following. So I think that got a lot of traction when she first started. And from then on, she had a really great EP come out and some other really great songs. And I think it just grew sort of organically. So we did a lot of touring, a lot of festivals that first year, and then she released an album, her first debut album, Cheap Queen. And then from that album we did a tour, and during that tour we learned that we were booked for Saturday Night Live and also The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. So we did those 2.
Saturday Night Live, I believe, because I remember you called me from the East Coast. Mm-hmm. You were supposed to be back here on a Monday and said, we're going to have to stay another 10 days because next weekend, you only had like 2 weeks notice, right? Yeah,
it was very short. Yeah, I forgot about that. That's true. But yeah, that was a really, really great experience, and got to meet a bunch of the different cast that were there and the guests. Will Ferrell was there, and he does look a lot like Chad Smith, I have to say. And yeah, it was really fun. And
Sean, you met, obviously, a great drummer on Saturday Night Live for all those years.
Yep.
And then, as the popularity of the band grew, you ended up doing Jimmy Fallon recently.
Yeah. So then COVID happened, and obviously there wasn't a lot going on for 2 years. And Michaela, the lead singer, aka King Princess, she was working on her second album, which just was released, called Hold On Baby, released a couple weeks ago. And as soon as she released her album, we started doing a lot more live showcases. And so in the last 2-3 weeks, we did The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. We opened for the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
You just can't say that in a sentence.
I mean
that's like unbelievable.
It is crazy to me still. I mean, it happened and it's still mind-boggling.
How many people were you in front of?
At the Chili Peppers show, it was like 40 to 60,000. It was at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas, which is like the newest stadium in the U.S. And that was, yeah, pretty crazy.
When you're talking about the way the band broke, and I look at generations prior, in my generation, it was always a matter of working a club, hoping somebody from a label would come in and see you, and they would want to sign you, and that was kind of like the beginning of your career. Going any direction that would allow the label to benefit from the talent of the band.
Yeah.
And labels would look for bands that would fill certain niches. But the world, as it's been in recent decades, actually, a band would approach that in a different way. And you said your popularity all came pretty much from the internet initially, without even a label behind it so much.
Well, so she was signed from, I think that first single, since it gained a lot of popularity, she got signed to Mark Ronson's label called Zelig Records, and I think she's pretty much their main artist within that label. And so I think within that connection, she that did help in getting placements and such. But her fame and popularity definitely was like organic, and it's a lot of, I feel like it's a lot of word of mouth too. Because during those first tours that we did, it was the fan base was really sticking together, and there was just a lot of talk in the community.
And speaking of the Red Hot Chili Peppers concert, you got Elias in, Elias Vasquez, another great drummer we have here on our Drum Channel team. And I think he had his iPhone out and shot a little bit of footage. You haven't even seen it yet.
No, not yet.
Elias, play a little bit of that for us, and we'll come right back. All right, that's a lot different than playing clubs in LA.
For sure.
No question. And the only thing that could get better than that, I would think, would be what the Chili Peppers thought about your performance when you played there. Because I know personally Chad Smith. He's a good friend, and you've met Chad recently too. The Chili Peppers are very much involved in who's going to be opening for them, and usually it's bands that they like, and they'll go to management. Sometimes management says, I have another young band I want to promote, and we're going to have them open the concert today, and everybody's like cool with that. But there was a reason why you were there, and they really liked it. And when they actually heard you, we have to bleep a little of this because it's them talking on stage live at the concert. But here's what they had to say about the band.
Did you listen to King Princess?
I watched the entire show. Good. Beautiful.
Good.
Beautiful. And you know what?
Good.
I don't think they ever played a stadium, but King Princess, that music is meant for a stadium.
You killed it.
Now, if they say you should be playing in an arena this size, that means they're listening to the same thing that I'm listening to, that I think your fans are listening to, and they might not know so much what that is, but to me it's the fact that it's a band. And for what you've told me in rehearsal situations, by that I mean a lot of times it's a lead singer and the backup musicians.
Right.
But I don't get that feeling at all from you guys.
The whole idea behind it is that we're still supported by backing tracks and playing along to clicks, and there's a lot of production to it, but the band is very involved. The sound is very organic, very raw. It's a lot of organic feel. It's not just like playing along to time and being really tight, which it is, but it's also, you know, the different fills and the different parts of the songs that still sound like a band and feel like a band.
Plus the other thing that I was going to tell you about that we talked about a little bit earlier, the secret to the success of the band, which is something that, why don't we just take a second and hear about what I'm speaking of right now. We recently had an interview, I think it was just before you, it was Jim Keltner, Terry Bozzio, and a Chad Smith show. Chad Smith has a whole series of shows here on Drum Channel. And this was an interview that the three of them did. And let's hear what the secret sauce is all about. And then I'm going to ask you what you think about that.
Okay.
Okay? Because it has to do about you. Let's take a look at that.
Don showed me, or somebody, I think it was Don, turned me on to to this kid, Antoine Fadavi. Or no, it was, it was Don, I think. Anyway, this is just one example, one name, this kid. I haven't even met him yet. But I heard the name and I said, okay, Antoine Fadavi, all right. And so I said, okay, let me look at this. And so I went on YouTube and I saw this kid play the most relaxed, amazing groove that satisfied me, because I like a groove, you know. I mean, I love the chops. You know how I support all the guys from, you know, Virgil and Terry Vinny, all you guys from another planet, from another tribe. That's a specific, wonderful thing that I want to support 100%, of course. But I also love to hear somebody who can play a groove that's like just this side, just this far down from the middle of the beat, and just sit there, and then on top of that be imaginative and play some crazy stuff, and then with chops that are like from that tribe. And I'm looking at this kid, and how old is he, like 15 or something, or maybe he's a little older than that. And I'm thinking, okay, so what has happened now?
That's
You'd never heard of, that's the first you've heard that, Cliff.
this is my first time seeing that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's wow. I mean, I remember I was in touch with him before I moved to the U.S. I think he sent me an email and said that he saw my videos and liked my playing. Yeah, Jim. And I was mind blown already, and that was like one of my greatest accomplishments. But for him to see it, to say that and see it on video, is crazy.
And he is the master of knowing how to stress and release. We call it a lot on Drum Channel.
Yeah.
Playing a little bit behind the beat, which is what I recognize about your playing also, and which is kind of the secret that kind of makes the music feel good. You know, we often say on Drum Channel the drummer is the leader of the band, whether the rest of the band knows it or not. But but from the standpoint of the people at the back of the stadium when you're playing 60,000 feet moving at the same time, has to do with how you're putting all that together. And you're putting a lot of technical electronics together with click tracks and then making it feel like you're not playing with a click track.
Yeah. Yeah. So, actually it's funny because the last the newest King Princess album that just came out, a lot of the songs are very straightforward in the drumming, but they feel amazing. Some of the grooves are just so fun to play, and that's my favorite thing to do. There's this song called Cursed where it's literally just time, but it's, you know, the right kind of ghost notes and the right feel and placed in the right way with the kick. It just feels so good to play, and as a band we just all lock together, and it kind of reminds me of like a James Gatson, like Bill Withers kind of old school vibe, but a little more rock. And that's, I mean, yeah, I love filling in stuff and chopping a little bit here and there, but grooving and like having fun on stage and kind of having this connection with the bass player and really locking in, that's like my favorite thing.
At your age, knowing about James Gatson, even mentioning his name, is so important for your young drummers to look back at kind of where it came from. Or you're talking about, Jim Keltner's talking about your time feel, that's James Gatson time feel. You know, you listening to him, you listening to Jim. Not even knowing what it might be that you like so much about their playing, but when you hear yourself back in a recording situation, sometimes it's like, it's not quite feeling as good as I would like. You know, Jim plays it a certain way, James plays it a certain way.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to experiment a little bit more and think about being a little more relaxed or laying back a little bit more. And you've interviewed the best drummers in the world. You've been involved in producing shows here on Drum Channel for years. And although you were there to memorialize the event, you're also a student.
Yeah.
So how has that experience helped your career?
Tremendous amount. And I think Elias can also attest with this, but producing all this content and filming it, we watch the same piece of information being told by these legendary drummers so many times, from pre-production to filming to post-production to putting it up on the site and our social channels and such. And talking about the DC Academy faculty alone, Chad Wackerman, Greg Bissonette, Thomas Lang, and Terry Bozio, I've learned so much from just these 4 drummers on the Drum Channel, and there's so many more. It's definitely pretty crazy. The thing that Terry says about music being not only an art but a science and a humanity is like stuck in my head every day, and there's definitely some really invaluable content on there. And obviously I'm biased, but if you don't have a Drum Channel membership yet, I highly recommend you check it out, because there's just so much on there to learn. And within my drumming career and how I've applied it to it, it's very interesting, because there's a lot of concept that I learned on Drum Channel that I wouldn't have learned anywhere else, that I applied to touring. And there's a lot that I learned touring and gigging around town that I've also applied to working in this environment. There's this kind of symbiosis that's really interesting.
And I think you're talking about something that I've often talked about on Drum Channel. The shows that we have on Drum Channel under DC Originals, where we have the guy sitting on a couch talking, that can almost give you, as important information as when you get into the lessons about how to hold the sticks and follow the bounce of the stick and the Murray Spivak method.
Yeah.
Because it's the Murray Spivak method is a Chad Wackerman course we have on that will teach you how to play the drums. But just because you learn how to play the drums, there's still a big void in what it's going to take for you to be a real musician. And that's us trying to bridge that gap and learning how to play in a band. From your early days doing covers, when you first got in a band, was it a little bit weird, or did you understand?
Very weird. Also, I started playing drums on electronic drums. So it was kind of this double transition of being a drummer, just like a bedroom drummer, playing electronic drums, to playing in a band on acoustic drums, which was a completely different thing. And when you start playing drums and you're 10, 11 years old and you play on electronic drums, it's easy to bring everything together, so it's comfortable. But as soon as you move to acoustic drums, they're all so big, and I was so small as a kid that it's like, it also is a different feel, and it's just, the way you hit something, the way it resonates is completely different. And so that transition was interesting.
And in addition to the band, what are some of the other things that you do? Because I know you're involved in a lot of other projects.
So I do a lot of touring and promotional shows with King Princess as a drummer, but whenever I'm in town in Los Angeles, I do a lot of music direction and also some playback work. So I work with different artists such as Iggy Azalea, Lil Nas X, Weston Estate, Fiji Blue, and it's like setting up a lot of backing tracks and working on audio and arranging and producing, and it's what I love to do. It's all related to the live music world. I do some studio work, but my biggest passion is like live music, and so putting together shows, like whenever I get a call from an artist and they wanna put a band together, then I know what kind of musicians they need and how to make them work together to create something that fits the artist, which I love doing.
And the technology part of your life, which is something that I think it's important for young drummers watching to learn about, that being part of their arsenal, one of their rudiments, if you'd want to call it that, in their world today. On the gig with King Princess, In a normal set, how many things are you doing in addition to playing the drums?
So in addition to the drums, I also run playback, which is backing tracks, and which is something that any drummer today that's interested in pursuing a career in the pop world should know about. And it's basically, I trigger all the songs. So whenever we go on to the next, I hit play, and if there's an issue, I have to stop the tracks or kind of calculate the flow of the set list. And within those backing tracks, there's a bunch of different things that happen. We have cues that go to all the musicians to let them know if there's a particular section that comes up, to remind them that they have to play something that's intricate. There's also information via a time code audio signal that goes to front of house for different audio patch changes, and that also goes to lighting. So lighting gets cues onto which kind of color palette, etc., to choose from.
And you're triggering that?
Yeah.
With a pad?
Yeah, so I use my Roland SPDSX to trigger all the songs, and then as soon as the song is triggered, it sends all the info to everyone. And we also have playback synced to a synth bass that the bass player is playing, and that has an LFO that's synced, and so whenever he plays, it actually is, the notes are actually synced to playback, to the click, so he can hold down a note and then it would be vroom, vroom, vroom. It would be like synced to the click. So there's a bunch of things that you can do, and it's even just scratching the surface. There's a lot more to do with it, but yeah, it's really fun.
And where do you learn that? Where did you?
I learned all of this meeting a lot of different music directors and engineers and musicians that knew a lot about it, and just being curious and open to learning new things. But yeah, it's kind of it's not an easy subject to learn. If you go on Google and search playback and backing tracks and time codes and things, it can be very, the information can be scarce, and it can also be a little confusing, because I've seen a lot of people try to kind of get into it like that and build a rig with different interfaces and such, and it works for their purpose, but it's not the standard. So as soon as they bring it to a bigger venue, usually it starts to crumble up because they made it at home. But there's different standards in the industry as to how to put together a proper rig and how to run it properly, so that you know that it applies to every different types of venues and scenario. Which, yeah, I learned it in person through mentors and friends.
So when you went out and sat down, opening up for the Chili Peppers, and you looked at 50, 60,000 people, was there any concern in your mind when you hit that backing track to kick off number one, that everything was dialed in, or were you a little bit concerned?
I felt very confident and not stressed at all.
What about the rest of the band?
I don't think so either.
Cool.
Because, yeah, I mean, we rehearsed it a lot. We did 4 or 5 days of rehearsal, pretty much like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., working on all the songs. And the way that we put everything together was kind of fail-proof. And all the equipment that we use is reliable and stable, and we all know what we're doing. So I think, we got up on stage and we were comfortable, and just trying to always take it back to playing with other people. It's like when you play in front, to me it's more intimidating to play in front of 20, 30 people than a stadium, because they're right here next to you, and they, you're really up close, and they hear your sound from, it's very unprocessed. But when you're in a stadium, the audience is so far away that it's like, they're over there, you're over here, you're on the stage, or with your friends. So it's like, you're playing with your friends, and then everything gets mixed properly, it looks good, and then it goes to the audience. So there's kind of a little bit of a disconnect, and that's why I also prefer playing smaller venues, like from 1.5 to 2,500 people, because you can see all their faces and it still feels pretty raw. Even though stadiums are super fun, it's you don't hear the audience as much too, because they're further away, so it kind of feels more like you're just playing with your friends on a stage.
And who are your friends on stage? Who are the other members of the band?
So Michaela Strauss is the singer and guitar player.
And you call her Michaela. If you're going to say, do you want a pizza, you don't say King. You call her
Yeah, yeah. We call her Michaela, or Mickey. And
Mickey, that's even cooler.
yeah, I know. And then the bass player's Logan McQuaid. He's one of my closest friends, and I've learned so much from him. And on keyboards, it's Kayla Sinclair, which is an amazing keyboard player that has like 5 synths around her and doing crazy stuff. And then we also have another guitar player that's kind of in rotation at the moment. But yeah, it's a very close band, and we're all very good friends, and we all kind of like the same music, so that helps.
What's really interesting is the thing that you bring to the band is what was important for a drummer to bring to the band 60 years ago, which is the main job of a drummer, which is to make it feel good.
Yeah.
And that's what James Gatson talked about. All the great drummers we've had on Drum Channel have talked about that. The time feel. Yes, the chops are important. They're good. And you certainly need them because there'll be a solo portion maybe of the show and or certain gigs. You want to do more techno kind of stuff, but or blast beats. But when you have that in your library, it doesn't mean you're going to pull that out. You're going to play whatever the gig kind of requires.
Yeah.
And as a backup artist to a singer, even though you're part of the overall band, listening to each other, how do you react or listen to what she is doing? How much do the lyrics affect your playing?
So much. It's funny because when we start rehearsals, they're fairly new songs. We've never played them together, so the first couple days are always kind of finicky, and we have a good amount of notes to go through. But the more we go through the songs, the more you get where they're coming from, why they were written the way they're written, and that can tell a lot about what's the intent behind it and how you should portray it. And I mean, also I know Michaela very well, and she is very vocal about what she likes and doesn't like, which is really good because I just love having notes from artists that you play for and they know what they want, because you get to understand why. And after years of playing with her, it's like I know what she likes, I know what kind of feel she likes, what kind of groove. And when we're in her rehearsal and she says, "Don't do that, try something like this," now I understand why she wants that. And so when I try it, she's like, perfect, because I know that she would rather have kind of maybe less ghost notes, or maybe more of a structured time, maybe something a little more machine-y for a part of the section of a song. And yeah, and it's not only about just kind of understanding an artist on a superficial level or just the music. It's also about the person, because the way they portray their emotions live is very important to them, and you have to make sure that you support them as much as you can. And sometimes it's going hard, sometimes it's going soft, but it kind of depends on what they have to say. So knowing the person is important too.
Let's play another clip of you playing with the band and explore exactly what you're talking about. We'll be right back. All right, it's the subtleties are what can kind of make or break a band, I think, and everything that you're talking about, it's deep, Hal Blaine, I know you've heard this many times when he came on. Question was, what do you like to find out when you go into the studio to play any one of those iconic hits through the, late 60s, 70s? It was like the lyrics. And how can a drummer emotionally fit into the lyrics of a song is what a lot of drummers are so busy playing what they practice, which you go through that phase, of course, but to have that just be part of your arsenal and just have it be something that you can use to express yourself is exactly what we're hearing when you play. And at a very early age, same with Elias and same with Adam, the team we have here, these young drummers understand that. Maybe I've been beating it into your heads more than I knew all these years.
Definitely.
But what's the band have coming up? I know you're going to be touring soon.
We have a month-and-a-half long tour coming up starting late September this year. And I'm really looking forward to that because that's for the new album, Hold On Baby, that just came out. And yeah, it's been a while since last tour we did. The last headline tour we did was before COVID. That's, 2-3 years ago. So yeah, I look forward to playing those venues again.
And even though you're out there, he still keeps up with all of our social media, which what could you encourage them to do there?
Well, I don't post that much on social media personally, but whenever I act as a music director and I look for musicians to hire, obviously the first thing I look at is their social media. And it's interesting because sometimes there's some players that have some really good videos and then you see them in person and they just can't hold up. So having a social media presence with really good videos and being a talented player in a room playing with other people are two very different things. So I would suggest you focus on being a good musician first, and then from then on, film yourself and start posting online rather than do the opposite, which I've seen a lot. But yeah, I'd say if you want to work in a certain genre, then post videos that are related to that genre, playing, it could be covers, it could be originals, or playing with other people. But something probably that's organic, that's, like one take and that kind of feels good and where, you can tell that you're a good player without too many artifacts. Because that's what I look for personally when I hire someone for a gig, a drummer or guitar player or anything else.
And play with a band. When you're looking at them on social media, if you see them actually playing with a band, that's an asset?
Yeah, that's great. So any kind of show you're playing, whether it's a small club or a big venue or a festival or anything, that's always a plus. Yeah.
And you are Mr. Drum Channel's social media also, so it's another area that tell them what they should be doing. I usually end the shows with saying what you should be watching and how you should be signing up for our various social media channels. But
yeah, so Drum Channel, we have a lot of content online. Obviously, check out the site. There's tons of content you can browse through. But we also have some great free resources on YouTube. We have a TikTok account with smaller, shorter videos, a lot of Instagram, Facebook also, we have some gems on there. And there's plenty to learn on social media, but it's hard not to get caught up with the fact that videos are short and they're tailored to be, easy to watch. But at some point, you're going to have to watch longer videos that are not so easy to watch. And that's where you're going to find the thing that pertains most to you. And if you watch like a 30-minute, hour-long interview and, kind of watch with intent and make sure you're focused, and you're going to find some sentences in there that are going to just change the way you think about drums. And that's how I've perceived it for myself whenever we were filming interviews here. It's like watching the whole thing, and somewhere in there the drummer's going to say something and you're really going to relate to it, and something's going to click, and you're going to be like, wow, I need to apply that. And you start applying it, and the more you do it, the more it's going to kind of build a nice foundation to your drumming, whether you're a beginner or even, professional drummers. There's always a lot of little things that are very important to learn.
And when you see those things going up on YouTube, you can say, I know the guy who's doing it, whether he's here in town or out on the road too.
Yeah.
Antoine, I thank you so much. I almost
Thank you, Don.
feel like a proud papa when you guys get these great gigs out there. It's been so many years, and I've seen you and your playing grow beyond your years, and as Jim Keltner explained, maybe beyond even what you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm still very young, and there's so much to learn, and I'm just really looking forward to what's to come, and I feel blessed to even be able to do this. Like at the Chili Peppers concert, I was watching them play, and I started to kind of tear up a little bit, because it's like, even 10 years ago when I was 13, I couldn't imagine playing, like moving to the US and then playing drums professionally and then opening up for them. I mean, it's crazy. So I'm very grateful, and yeah, I'm looking forward to what's to come.
And having them say they love the band and they love your playing too.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, a long career ahead of you. Antoine, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Don. It's an honor.
All right.